causing physical pain and in some cases death.
You know that this Greek credit and debt crisis has trumped all other news, even the downgrade of various European nations. Everybody's most concerned about Greece, and you know the creditors are now in Greece trying to renegotiate this deal. Greece's debt talks with creditors stall amid coupon dispute. So that was last week when the creditors had walked away from the talks after failing to agree with the Greek government about how much money investors will lose by swapping their bonds, increasing the risk of the euro area's first sovereign default. So apparently it's the hedge funds in particular who want to make as much profit as possible, and the only way, therefore, they're demanding 100% repayment on these bonds or an outright default. They don't want a voluntary arrangement because they want to be paid off on their credit default swaps.
Well, people should understand that leading up to the crisis was the result of financial masochism. These are financial firms like Goldman Sachs masochistically destroying countries like Greece and Ireland, Portugal, and others. Now that we've had the result of the crisis and they're trying to eke out austerity measures, this is sadism. So it's sadomasochism. Economics is the preferred model of the Wall Street bankers. And one only assumes that Lloyd Blankfein puts on, you know, one of those red ball around the neck with in the mouth.
The GIMP?
The GIMP. Goldman Sachs is Tim Geithner's GIMP. So whenever Tim Geithner needs to push some more really bad sovereign debt, he says, call out the GIMP. And out of the floor comes Lloyd Blankfein with one of those S&M contraptions on and a leather, latex stretch suit. And then some good old boys, some rednecks, have their way with him with shotguns. I wish we had that on video.
Well, about these failed talks between the Greek government and the creditors, here's what Karl Denninger wrote. Greece, the fuse is in the box. The Greeks have figured out that when you owe someone money and borrowed it unsecured, as is always true for sovereigns, you have the trump hand. So Greece is finally recognizing that they owe billions and billions of dollars, and they're the ones that have the negotiating power in this situation. Why are they sitting at a table with these guys who are demanding 100% repayment? They should just walk away and say, I'll give you 2 cents on the dollar for even suggesting that.
Absolutely. I mean, again, this article in the Times was very revealing because it talked about how Goldman Sachs was losing money hand over fist after the 9/11 attacks because volume had dried up. And it was some trader in Europe who came up, she found the loophole that allowed for Goldman to sell Greek fraudulent paper without getting quote-unquote caught. And this has set the stage for this massive journey into a fraudulent black hole. Now Greece is waking up to the fact that, wait a minute, you're the ones who stand to lose. Even if we default on all of our bonds, 2 or 3 years later, we can sell new bonds. Look at Iceland. Iceland was able to sell new bonds 2 or 3 years after they defaulted. Look at Argentina. They sold new bonds after they defaulted. The idea that you won't be able to sell bonds after you default is bogus. That's an idea sold to you by the same people who put you into this untenable position. I only wish Ireland would figure this out. Ireland still believes that they have to kowtow to the terrorists, the financial terrorists that are holding them hostage. That's not true.
At the top of the show, we talked about this 419 scam on an epic scale. Then Karl Denninger basically suggests that's what these no default risk of sovereign bonds is as well. Because he says they're right, the Greeks, to walk away, incidentally. The utter and complete fraud in our banking structures that allow institutions to hold these sorts of debts as quote-unquote risk-free, requiring no reserves and no capital behind them, is an outrage. It is systemic and intentional fraud perpetrated upon the world for the sole benefit of making possible national overspending with impunity, destroying any sort of market discipline aimed at budgetary deficits.
Right, and to add to the psychosis, the rating agencies. Remember, last year they were saying countries like Greece and Ireland, they need to impose austerity measures in order to maintain their terrible rating. It'll be downgraded. Now, after these rating agencies have downgraded all these European countries, they're saying the reason is because of the austerity measures and the inability for these countries to pay their debt due to the austerity measures. It's complete psychosis. Remember, 2 or 3 years ago, they gave collateralized debt obligations that were 99% worthless junk and 1% AAA paper, overall AAA rating. It's reverse drug dealing. Imagine a cocaine dealer who's selling you drugs. He will take some cocaine and mix it in with baby laxative and sell it to you like it's all cocaine. The rating agencies, S&P, Moody's, and Fitch, they do the reverse. They take essentially junk paper and they cut it with just a little bit of AAA paper. That's the baby laxative, the AAA paper, and they call the whole thing AAA. So it's reverse drug dealing by rating agencies as it pertains to sovereign debt. And unfortunately, everyone's been on this worthless stuff, and as a result, they're addicted to it, and they all need to be put in rehab.
Well,